This is Donald Harrison, Executive Director of the Ann Arbor Film Festival. You're watching The Hot Seat with Zach Damon.
Hi, this is Michael Moore, and I have been coming to the Ann Arbor Film Festival since I was a teenager. So this is 40-some years ago that I first came down here. And I remember the first time I attended this festival. Of course, being a kid from Flint, I was only used to, films like Dirty Harry and Cannonball Run and things like that. And so when I saw my first Ann Arbor Film Festival movies, I was blown away. They were audacious, daring, dangerous, and they had naked people in them. I'd never seen naked people before, and it gave me many ideas, all good. And I am grateful to this wonderful festival.
And how did you get involved with the Ann Arbor Film Festival?
Well, Zach, thanks for having me on the show. I grew up in the Detroit area, and so I am from the region. I also went to school here at the University of Michigan, and then I left. I went to London, I went to San Francisco for about a decade, and I moved back to the area 4 years ago and got involved with the Ann Arbor Film Festival, and it's been a great ride ever since.
What got you involved with film, I guess, early on in your career, maybe as a young student or just as a person that sort of was a film connoisseur?
Well, I actually didn't start off real early in my career with film. I studied social psychology, and I started to get more into film when I moved to London after I graduated school. And a lot of documentaries on BBC, on public television there, got me more interested. And then when I moved to the San Francisco Bay Area, there's a really rich culture in terms of film, media, art, politics happening out there. And I started to get more involved with the great film community in the Bay Area. And then, of course, like a lot of people who make documentaries, inspiration strikes. I didn't have film training. I had an idea for a film, and I decided to take some classes and make my first documentary. And that was about 10 years ago. And from the moment I did the first class, I was hooked. We ended up shooting on Super 8, and this was about 2000, 2001. And it was sort of surprising to me that the instructor handed us Super 8 cameras, these old formats from the 50s, 60s, and 70s. And I loved it, shooting on real film, seeing your film projected. And that carried over into the films that I made and the types of films that I'm drawn to, where people are really interested in the medium in terms of trying different things out and not just caught up in sort of the latest technologies, although it's definitely good to stay relevant. So I make documentaries, I make some experimental documentaries, but the last 6-7 years I've really focused a lot on running an arts organization. I was involved in a place called Film Arts Foundation in San Francisco for about 5 years, and this is going to be my 3rd season as Executive Director of Ann Arbor Film Festival.
Awesome. I mean, what are the day-to-day, tasks or responsibilities of an Executive Director of a film festival? What goes into that?
That's a really good question, Zach. It's a very seasonal job. We're an annual event, so we happen the last week in March. We also do a lot of events and other activities throughout the year, but it really is cyclical. So my week during the festival is unlike the rest of the year. It's very intensive, getting up on stage, meeting a lot of, hundreds of filmmakers, thousands of people in the audience. It's exciting, and the rest of the year, the job is a lot different than that. So it's pretty much anything and everything. I mean, doing press, making sure that we're out doing outreach in the community, working with a lot of the schools in the region, working with the different staff to make sure that they're staying on task. Right. And it's very relationship driven. I mean, the film industry, as you know, is very much relationship, network driven. Right. And my job, that's very much the case. So a lot of times I'm meeting with people, building those relationships, and I love doing that. That's one of the things I love most about the job, is there's so many great people in this community. The realm that we're in, where you're dealing with artists who make film, are some of the most interesting people you're going to meet anywhere. And so I feel very fortunate that I'm able to have this position with Ann Arbor Film Festival in a community like this. And so I don't know if that answers your question. It's pretty much anything and everything. I might be answering the phone one minute. I might be on the phone with a funder, a sponsor, a filmmaker the next. But I think with anybody's job these days, it's a lot of email and it's a lot of meetings and a lot of phone calls. So, but I do have, there are the glamorous moments like this as well.
You felt very, privileged and excited to be part of such a great film community. Now, you're talking about Ann Arbor here. You're not talking about California. You're not talking about, whether it's Los Angeles or New York, Chicago. You're not bringing up those markets. You're talking about Ann Arbor. Now, is there really a great film market here in Ann Arbor as a city?
Well, in terms of, I don't think about it as much as markets. I think we do have a great community and audience for film. And so we have the Michigan Theater here, which is, I think, one of the best historic movie palaces in the country. And so there's a strong culture of movie going and people looking for art house cinema and getting off sort of the mainstream path of what's on network TV or sort of coming out of Hollywood. And Ann Arbor has a really long tradition and history of people that are even taking that a step further and looking for work that's going to really challenge yourself as a viewer. So our festival is the second oldest in the country. So the oldest is not New York, it's not LA, it's not Chicago. San Francisco started about 5 years before Ann Arbor with the San Francisco International Film Festival. That was very much started sort of in reaction to Hollywood. So they were showing a lot of feature films from other countries. And Ann Arbor started up very much as a platform for independent artists making a lot of short films that really had nowhere to show their work. And so it was pretty much ahead of its time. I mean, now we hear the term independent film a lot. And it doesn't even mean the same thing. It's sort of become a marketing label for films. But back in 1963, when George Manupelli, this professor here at the University of Michigan, started the Ann Arbor Film Festival, it was in many ways the true independent spirit of film and art. And we carry that spirit on today. So we show a lot of short films. We're very much looking for artists who are working outside of the commercial industry. And some of them also do work in that realm. Some of them also cross over into the art and the gallery and museum world. But we're really excited about film as an art form and seeing what's possible on the screen and within sound. And that's something I think that really separates us from the Sundance, Tribeca, Toronto, sort of these big industry festivals. We're very much about film as an art form and excited about artists who are doing pretty much anything and everything they can imagine within the screen.
Are there a lot of notable names in film that come through the Ann Arbor Film Festival? I mean, I've heard, I guess, some rumors that there have been some big names, but who've been some names that have come through the Ann Arbor Film Festival or have worked with the Ann Arbor Film Festival?
Yeah, there's thousands and thousands of filmmakers who've shown in the festival, and then within that, there's people who've gone on to become very famous. So George Lucas screened in the 60s a student version of THX 1138. Andy Warhol came to town for the Ann Arbor Film Festival in the late 60s, and he brought the Velvet Underground to perform here. Yoko Ono screened work here. Devo actually credits Ann Arbor with helping launch their career because they did a music video in 1976. They didn't have enough money. I ended up talking to Mark Mothersbaugh, the lead singer of Devo. He said, we didn't have enough money to even make the drive from Ohio up to Ann Arbor, but the film won an award. It went on the traveling tour. It got seen by some record execs out on the West Coast, who then called them in, and then they ended up getting signed from that. So it's been very influential in terms of helping introduce the world to a lot of different artists. Brian De Palma was showing his work here in the 60s. And in terms of who we bring in, last year we were fortunate to have funding from the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences to bring in legendary Kenneth Anger. We'd screen his work here in the 60s. He's now 82 years old. And we were able to have an evening with Kenneth Anger live on stage. And that was pretty special. It's pretty rare to treat for us to be able to do that. And so that's something that we look to every year to figure out who are some of the most influential, important artists working within film to try and bring them into town. But we also draw a lot of people who you haven't heard of yet to come into Ann Arbor, and maybe 5, 10, 15, 20 years from now, you realize these people have gone on to be very influential as well.
All of a sudden you're walking downtown and you see the light bulbs of the Michigan Theater, and it says Ann Arbor Film Festival coming up in March, or the dates of the Ann Arbor Film Festival. What would you say to an average person who doesn't know much about film, but has a bunch of friends in film and says, look, you should come to the Ann Arbor Film Festival? Why should they come if they've never been involved with film before? And what does the Ann Arbor Film Festival have for everyone in the Ann Arbor community? Why should they come?
Well, it would really baffle me that people wouldn't want to come see films that are really going to reward them, challenge them, and we really present a lot of work that's pretty rare. You see a lot of the work presented way beyond anything you're going to see, especially online these days. I mean, the quality is just not the same as seeing a film that was made on 16 millimeter, projected in a beautiful theater with a big audience on 16 millimeter, with the filmmaker there in attendance to talk about their work. It's a very accessible festival, and that's one of the things I love most about it, is for less than $100, you can get a full festival pass. You can go to pretty much every screening. You can go up to the filmmakers and talk to them about their work. And some of the bigger festivals, I've been to Toronto's and Sundance's, and sometimes the film that you worked on the film yourself, you can't even get into the screening.
Really?
And it's a different scale. And so we have a great scale. I think it's scaled very well with Ann Arbor. It's a great hospitable community. And the types of filmmakers that come in, they're not used to being flown around the world. And so a lot of them, this is a really big moment for them to get into Ann Arbor. I mean, the reputation among people making film as an art form, making short films, people making experimental work. This is one of the premier festivals in the US, if not the world, for them to get into.
So talk about how can one get involved in working with the Ann Arbor Film Festival, whether they want to volunteer or whether they want to help out. How do they do that?
Yeah, we're definitely fortunate to have a lot of great people in the community help power the film festival. We have over 10,000 volunteer hours that go into it. And so one really great way that people can help is they can host a filmmaker. And we have a lot of people with homes that are close to downtown that host a filmmaker who comes in. And a lot of these filmmakers are not the most wealthy people. So for them to know that there's going to be a great home and somebody who's going to give them a guest room or a couch even to stay, that makes it affordable for them to buy their flight and to come. And we get a lot of the filmmakers that come in for that very reason. It's one of the things that makes Ann Arbor pretty special. So people can let us know if they want to host a filmmaker. They also can volunteer. So in terms of just literally being at the festival, helping usher, helping pass out materials. We always have a lot of volunteers that we need for that as well. We have a core group of people that help us screen films. We got about 2,500 films this year sent in from almost 70 countries. And so that's more than I personally can watch, as much as I would want to watch all of those. So we have about 30 people in the community that we train, that we work with year in and year out, who really know what the festival's about. And if there's somebody in the community who feels like they've gone to the festival, they have a good sense for it, it's good to meet people like that and sort of audition people and see if they have the chops. It's not for everybody to watch hundreds of films and be able to review those. So that's another great way. Being an audience member is a fantastic way to be involved.
Right.
Opening night, we typically have over 1,000 people that come out, and that makes a big difference for those filmmakers that have flown across the country or even come from overseas to get up on the big stage and look out and see 1,000 people who came out to see their short film. It might be a 4-minute film or a 15-minute film. And that's one of the things that makes Ann Arbor incredibly special for a lot of filmmakers, is that when you make that kind of work, you might have 50 people in the audience, or 100 people in the audience, or 150 people in the audience, or maybe 10. I mean, that's the reality for people making short film and working with film as an art form very independently. And to show up in Ann Arbor and have 200 people, 400 people, 800, or over 1,000, which we do for a lot of the shows, that's really pretty special. And that's one of the things that really makes the festival, I think, have the reputation that it does worldwide.
Well, can you talk a little bit about what happened a few years ago? I know I had read that the Ann Arbor Film Festival was really going through some hard times as far as financing and funding-wise. They almost were in a state of, I don't know if you can call it desperation, but that's the word I would use. And you, obviously, as the rest of the Arbor Film Festival staff, worked tremendously hard to keep the Arbor Film Festival's budget and activity alive. So even to have a grant from obviously the big, the American Academy of Film Arts and Sciences from California to step in and give you guys a grant and say, hey, you're worth sticking around. We support you and we know you're here. How important was that?
I was like, that was a lot in that question, and I think it's a great question because with an arts organization, a nonprofit, very reliant on funders and donors and people in the community to really get behind it and make it happen. You know, we're entering our 49th season, and that's remarkable, especially for a festival that's not showing a lot of commercial work. You know, we don't just show the films that are going to put butts in seats. That's not our mission. Our mission is very much to show the filmmakers that we believe have a strong artistic vision and that are bold and are really challenging and rewarding audiences beyond just entertainment. Although we like films that are entertaining as well, and really looking at film as an art form. And so we're very much dependent on the community to support it. And over those 49 years, it's gone up and down. The festival has almost gone away more than once. And so when I came back to Michigan about 4 years ago, it was right in the middle of a very difficult time for the festival. They lost state funding. There was a whole censorship funding controversy, and the director at the time, Kristen McCardle, did a fantastic job of really fighting for what the festival stands for, getting the community very excited and behind it. And you know, from that we built support from the Warhol Foundation, a multi-year grant, which was huge. The Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences came in with funding, and recently again, and a lot of individuals who stepped in and said, you know what, I think what you guys are doing is important. I want to get behind it, whether it's volunteering, whether it's becoming a member for $50 or somebody making a $10,000 or $5,000 contribution. We've really turned a big corner. So 4 years ago, the festival was very much in jeopardy. There was discussion of whether it was going to be able to continue. And it's at the point now we've actually been growing it. You know, it's a staff now of 4 people. We work very hard still. You know, it's a labor of love. But we're very committed to the vision for it. We're excited about the 50th anniversary, where a lot of attention is going to be put on us, not just in the region, not just even in the country, but worldwide as far as what Ann Arbor Film Festival represents, what it's done, and where it's heading. And so that's pretty motivating and exciting, but it's very much because there's so many people in this community, and even outside of our local community, that felt that what Ann Arbor is doing, what it stands for, is very important. And one of the things that really surprised us that happened in 2007, right at the end of 2007, as the lawsuit was getting settled, so we were putting that behind us, and ACLU had actually stepped in and on our behalf for that. But Variety magazine, which is the sort of main magazine of the entertainment industry in Los Angeles, their president at the time was giving a speech about film festivals, and he said, you know, here's our 10 favorite film festivals, the 10 film festivals that we love worldwide, and this is why. And he named off these 10 different festivals, and there were some of the big name festivals mentioned in there, and then he mentioned Ann Arbor, and he said, you know, they have just an incredibly strong artistic vision, they champion artists. And you know, that was really surprising for us to have something that's so much based on sort of the industry and entertainment industry recognize us for what we do, which is very much about the art form and not so much about the industry or the entertainment side, but appreciating that that's one and the same. It's the other side of the same coin, so to speak. And that's very encouraging for us to see that that's recognized and appreciated.
Do you have any, I guess, words of advice that you can give some up-and-coming filmmakers, people who are trying to, I guess, carve their niche or make their mark on independent film, and what would you say to them?
That's a great question. I would say that it's a process. That's the first thing that I learned, is not to be impatient and expect to immediately make a master work. I think a lot of people get caught up in the idea of, you know, hitting it big, and that's great, but really get caught up in the process and why you're doing what you're doing, what you're trying to say, what you're trying to communicate, and learn your craft, learn your form, make those relationships and connections, and don't expect your first film to be the greatest film ever. It's possible, or it might just be, you know, a really good work that you learned from and then you build from. So for me, I know as a maker, I started out with big dreams, delusions of grandeur, so to speak, that first 5-minute film was going to be the greatest thing that was ever made. And I look back on it now, and it's a fun film, and I was learning what I was doing. And so really understand that if you're starting out, or if you're a few years in, or wherever you are in your filmmaking and in your practice, it's a process, and that you're always learning. It's good to challenge yourself. And the thing that we look for a lot is people that are going beyond what we've seen. And so there's a lot of ideas being recycled, and there's ways to do that are fresh. But oftentimes we see after you watch hundreds of films, kind of the same approach, the same ideas over and over. And we just encourage people to sort of think, okay, that's maybe a good idea, but what if I took that even beyond? What would it mean to surprise the audience? What would it mean to let my audience step into my film and have their own experience, as opposed to trying to orchestrate exactly how we want them to feel? And those are the films that I tend to get more excited about, that our festival tends to value more, and that I think are more rewarding, because different people can have a different experience of the same film. And obviously when it's very abstract, that can happen. But the more that you trust your audience and trust your own vision, and really push yourself to think, okay, what's beyond? What would be going another step beyond that initial idea, or developing it further? And again, really understand that that film you made, maybe it's not a big hit. We'll work on the next one. Like learn from that, and deepen your appreciation for what you're doing and how audiences are experiencing it.
So can you talk a little bit? I know you've said numerous times throughout the questioning that you're not just about butts filling seats, or you're not about the commercial industry. Well, I know that you've heard of the tax breaks that film producers get now in the state of Michigan. Can you talk a little bit about your opinion of that? Because recently, even Rick Schneider, the Michigan governor-elect, he had actually played it down and said that, well, really, why do we need this? It's really not that important. And it's not a huge industry here in Michigan, and we don't really need it, and things of that sort. Those may not have been his exact words, but he played it down. And even another congressman in Michigan had said, well, the bill is kind of transparent. Well, I don't know what's transparent about 58% of Michigan voting it in, but that's just their opinion. What are your thoughts about those comments?
Well, when I moved back to Michigan from California in 2006, I was really surprised that a year later that all of a sudden the film industry followed me. It was the last thing that I expected, and I wasn't really sure what that would do. I mean, I was even a little skeptical at first that maybe that's not the best use of tax dollars, is to create this, in effect, subsidy for the film industry to come here. But from what I've seen, I mean, the festival, Ann Arbor Film Festival, has benefited a little bit by that, mostly in that people are so much more excited about film, and I think it's really improved the film culture and excitement about independent film and just filmmaking in general. But I actually have come to think that it's been a really good thing for the state, and if they're going to phase it out, that they should be very smart about it and let it really take hold. So I personally believe that we should. We've already done it. It's already been working. A lot of people from Los Angeles, New York are coming to Michigan and filming here and bringing a lot to the economy. And indirectly, I know a lot of people who are working in, whether it's food service or post-production or other industries that have benefited. And so to me, it would be a shame to pull the plug on that when there's a lot of infrastructure getting built. There is a lot of excitement, and there's not enough excitement in the state, the kind of thing that would keep a lot of film school grads or creative people here in the area. And I think that's important for a healthy climate and healthy cultures, that you have people that are making art or that are involved in some type of creative field. So hopefully the governor keeps it going for quite a bit while longer, and that we can keep some of that excitement that I think has really taken hold here in the state, and especially in Ann Arbor, Detroit.
Do you think it's going to? Do you think that that type of enthusiasm for film will stick around in a state like Michigan?
Well, I think there's already been a pretty strong, although maybe not as visible, enthusiasm for film in Michigan. Detroit was actually one of the biggest film industry producers back in the 40s and 50s. this company called Jam Handy was producing, I think, more films, and a lot of these were industrial films, but had a huge output of film back in that time. And there's a lot of artists who have continued to work with film here within Detroit, within Ann Arbor, within the state. But you know, in terms of the industry, yeah, it's definitely been harder to make a living at it. And so I think whether or not the industry's here, there's going to continue to be a lot of incredible work coming out of this region. I think we're blessed to have, for whatever reason, a lot of talent that grows up in Southeast Michigan especially, but within Michigan. And to me, it'd be great to keep more of that talent here. But I think we're going to continue to see a lot of visionary, a lot of original artists and ideas coming out of this area, whether or not the film industry is here. But again, I think it helps to keep those people here, not see them go off to New York or Los Angeles to try and make a career of it.
Well, okay, I guess the big question is then, when is the next film festival, and where do people go? How can they go? How can they enjoy it?
Well, the film festival is going to be every week, not every week. It's going to be every March, the last week of March. So as springtime hits, we really want people in town to start to recognize that, wait, spring, Ann Arbor Film Festival time. Just in the way I think people who live here have a sense for when it's football season, and they have a sense for when art fair is coming. Springtime, Ann Arbor Film Festival brings the city to life with creativity, artistic inspiration, and the last week of March this year is going to be March 22nd, opening night, Tuesday night. Great night out, you shouldn't miss it. And that's something that we really want to make sure that people in this community just sort of ingrain that in their heads, start putting it in their calendars. And the festival attendance has been growing every year since I've been in town, and so we anticipate over 15,000 people to come in for it over 6 days. We show 40 programs, 10 of which are free to the public, pretty much during the afternoons, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, the film festival. You can go into the Michigan Theater and you can see amazing work for free, and that's something I think a lot of people don't know. But we definitely encourage people to go on our website, check out the program. We announce everything at the beginning of March, so March 1st, passes and tickets and all the programs go online. And obviously people can find out more on our website or sign up for our newsletters because we do a lot more throughout the year. We have an event coming up in just a few weeks at a new space here in town with an artist coming in from Chicago. And that's something that we're going to continue to do more of because we want to make sure that we're building the excitement year-round, making sure that the audiences are having a chance to see some really great work. The Michigan Theater brings in a lot of good films, but there's so much more out there in the world that we want to make sure that we're bringing to town as well.
Is there anything else that you'd like to touch on in terms of the Ann Arbor Film Festival or any of its viewers?
Yeah, I think one thing that a lot of people don't necessarily know here in Ann Arbor because you don't see it is that we take a traveling tour all around the country and even overseas. And this is something that Ann Arbor Film Festival pioneered back in 1964, is to package sort of a best of or some of the favorite shorts or some of the shorts that we're able to get access to and send those around the country. And so this year we're going to be in more than 35 cities around the U.S. In fact, it just played Portland, Oregon. It's going to play Portland, Maine. I'm going to be presenting it in Jackson, Michigan in a few weeks. And so that's something that is pretty special. In fact, I like to think of us as one of the best exports that Ann Arbor has in terms of U of M football or, the Block M, people know worldwide. Zingerman's is another famous export of Ann Arbor. But Ann Arbor Film Festival plays Tuscaloosa, Alabama. It plays Albuquerque, New Mexico. And Ann Arbor Film Festival comes to town and people come out because they want to see some of the most, what's at the forefront of independent experimental film. And I think that's something that a lot of people here don't necessarily know, but really does separate us from a lot of the film festivals that you would find across the country. And the other piece of that we've recently started is a DVD collection. And so you might be able to catch our tour if you live in Missouri or in Kansas or in Chicago. But if you miss it, or you live in a city where it's not yet coming, you can actually buy a collection of some of those same films. And we just put out our third collection. People can buy it. It's just $18, and it has some of the most creative, inspiring, independent experimental films from this past year's festival. And so something I would definitely encourage people to check out as well.
What is your favorite film that you could watch over and over again, whether it's independent or commercial? And why is that film Why has it captivated you so much?
You know, Zach, I don't tend to answer that question just because I'm so excited about seeing new films that I don't tend to have films that I revisit a lot. There are films that have been very influential for me. I remember when I first started getting into filmmaking, and this first class I took to make documentary film was alternative documentary techniques. This was out in San Francisco. And I just remember I hadn't seen a lot of experimental documentaries. I'd seen some really good documentaries up till that point, but it just wasn't something I'd been exposed to as much. And a film, The Smell of Burning Ants by Jay Rosenblatt, it's a short 20-minute film, but he was approaching documentary in a different way that I'd seen, and it really affected me at the time and sort of got me more interested in seeing other work by makers like Trinh Minh T. Ha, Ellen Bruno, Craig Baldwin, people that are doing things that I'd never seen before. So, you know, I have a lot of favorite artists, but for me to try to pick one film, I can't really do it. I will say that the film Living in Oblivion is a film that not a lot of people have seen. And it's one that around that time was also influential for me. Steve Buscemi's in it, Catherine Keener. It's a comedy, it's very funny, and it's very much about the filmmaking process and what can go wrong. And so it's a film that I've seen quite a few times, and I just really enjoy sort of all the pitfalls of the filmmaking process. And if you haven't seen it, it's definitely worth the view.
Well, Donald, that is all the questioning that I have for you. But I just want to thank you so much again for taking the time out of your busy schedule to come and join me on this intimate setting here, and hopefully we can have you again next year before the next film festival. And any last words?
Just appreciate you having me on the hot seat, Zach, and definitely I'll see you at the festival, and hope we get to see more people in the community get excited about this thing that's been going a long time, very much a part of the cultural heritage. And I think it's really one of the special things about Ann Arbor. And I mean, it's obviously exciting for me, but I think that that's catching on more and more, and it's something I'm excited to see continue.